guys? It's Dakota, and today we're going to be going over a variant of Tron that had 5-0'd a modern league very recently. Uh, Eldrazi Tron is not the usual Tron deck that you run into. You usually run like mono green Tron, but this one is picking up a lot of popularity because of the like banned Stoneblade decks and some of the other decks that kind of really fold to like Chalice of the Void. And Chalice of the Void's a really weird card. It comes into play with X charge counters on it. Whenever a player affects both players, cast a spell with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Chalice of the Void, counter that spell. One important thing to know about Chalice of the Void is that when you play Chalice of the Void and your opponent casts a spell, like say it's Chalice on one, your opponent casts a one-mana spell, you have to announce the trigger from Chalice of the Void to be able to counter the spell. Your opponent can play things into Chalice and essentially hope that you miss the trigger. And you cannot purposefully miss your own triggers because that's obviously cheating, but it's not cheating for your opponent to basically hope that you like miss a trigger or something like that with their spells. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're playing Chalice of the Void is to remember your Chalice triggers whenever necessary. The rest of the deck, basically, why is it Eldrazi Tron and why is it an important distinction from regular Tron? Uh, just like in regular Tron and Urza Tron, you're playing or Eldrazi Tron, you're playing the Urza Lance, Tower, Power Plant, Mine. When you have all three of them in play, they collectively produce 7 mana total: three from the Tower, two from Power Plant, two from Mine. Um, but your mana base in the Eldrazi Tron version gets to be a little bit more reactive. You get like Cascading Cataracts to create mana into an indestructible land that also produces a colorless mana for your other colorless spells. Cavern of Souls to make your Eldrazi uncounterable. Eldrazi Temple conveniently only playing 3 instead of 4, which I think is pretty weird, but it's essentially a soul land. Taps for 2 to cast Eldrazi spells or activate abilities of colorless Eldrazi. Can also add a colorless mana as well. Some waste if your opponent like blows up your lands. Tectonic Edge and Ghost Quarter to blow up your opponent's lands. And Seagate Wreckage you can activate to essentially just draw extra cards with all your extra mana that you have in play. So in regular Tron compared to Eldrazi Tron as well, you play far more creatures in the Eldrazi Tron version than you do in the regular Tron decks because the regular Tron decks are usually playing like Karn the Great Creator and Karn Liberated, and they're also playing the 8 mana Ugin, not traditionally the 6 mana Ugin. But with these two, versus playing like Liberated and Ugin the Spirit Dragon. Ugin the Ineffable makes a lot of your colorless spells just cost less, gives you some card advantage, and then takes care of some problem permanents as well. While Karn the Great Creator can just shut down your opponent's artifacts, like really good against the Euroza decks that are running around. Just shuts down all their random artifacts. Makes Emery a little bit worse, so like Emery Opal, Loop, and things like that. Pretty bad considering they can't activate it. Um, you can also blow up like an opposing player's like Chalice of the Void if you want to, because you can turn into a creature and Chalice's converted mana cost is 0. You can also go to your sideboard, which is a very popular thing to do with Karn, probably the best thing to do with Karn, and just go get like your bunch of 1-ups in your sideboard. Like you got a Wormcoil Engine, a Golos, Witchbane Orb, Mystic Forge, a Trinisphere, which can just like lock people out of the game. Ensnaring Bridge, Torpor Orb, Sorcerer Spyglass, Liquid Metal Coating so you can blow up some lands, Relic, Grafdigger's Cage, a Walking Ballista, and a Tormod's Crypt. Uh, so like basically that's like all the sideboard is just like you have 2 Spatial Contortion and you have 13 targets for Karn. The creatures, this is where obviously the deck just wants to like end the game as fast as possible. An interesting addition to what these decks like have been playing usually Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. Uh, you can search for a land when it comes into play, and then you can pay 1 of each color and 2 of any other to exile the top 3 cards of your library, and then you may play them without paying their mana cost. That's why you have the Cascading Cataracts, because you can just add 1 of each color for 5 mana. Obviously, it ends up being a lot to activate Golos, but in like the grindier long games where you essentially just get to draw 3 cards and probably at some point just play 3 spells a turn, you know, possibly even 4. You know, if you hit like Ugin the Great Creator or like in a Reality Smasher and Matter Reshaper or something like that, that's still a pretty good turn, all things considered. Um, the more traditional cards are Matter Reshaper, Thought Seer, Reality Smasher, and Endbringer. Um, Matter Reshaper is just an aggressive card, a 3 mana 3/2. Uh, can put a card with converted mana cost 3 or less into play. Otherwise, that card goes into your hand. So, obviously, if you hit a land, it can go into play. You can put a Chalice on 0, map, mine, um, and other like Matter Reshapers as well. If not, then you can just have that card go into your hand anyway. So, like, if you reveal like a Thought here, or like Reality Smasher, obviously you just want those cards in your hand anyway. If you can't put them into play, and then obviously it drew a really good card. Thought here is Thoughtseize on a stick, but only better because you don't have to lose life when you play it, and it exiles that card. The only drawback is that when it leaves, that your opponent gets to draw a card. But a 4 mana 4/4 with an effect that just like takes your opponent's removal spell, or it takes like the best card out of their hand to stop them from comboing off, is pretty good and worth the drawback for sure. Reality Smasher, another aggressive, 5 mana 5/5 trample haste, and then it 2 for 1 your opponent automatically, uh, just by them targeting it. They want to path it, they got to discard a card. They want to dismember it, they got to discard a card. The only way to really effectively get rid of Reality Smasher is like a board wipe, which really the only ones that are like playing mass removal are the other Eldrazi decks, which All Is Dust does not hit Reality Smasher conveniently, and the other like mono green Tron decks that are playing like Oblivion Stone, but those decks seem traditionally weaker when Eldrazi Tron is the most played Tron variant. Um, Endbringer, to top out the curve, untaps during each other player's untap step. You can ping something with it. You can mow down like small creatures. Force your opponent's like best creature not to be able to attack this turn, or like tap or make it so that they can't block to push through damage, or just draw an extra card on your turns, because obviously getting to play like these big Eldrazi's and getting to play multiple a turn while getting to draw multiple cards a turn is definitely an easy way to turn the game around and just really distance yourself and limit the outs that your opponents have. Um, the last few spells in the deck, Dismember is basically like a hard removal spell for 99% of the creatures in the format. It doesn't kill Primeval Titan, but this deck is just looking to slow down the Titan decks and put a fast clock on them, not really deal with Titan once it gets into play. All is Dust, just basically a one-sided wrath. It's a Plague Wind that you can use Eldrazi Temple to cast, because Tribal makes this an Eldrazi, or Tribal Sorcery. Eldrazi means that you can pay the 2 mana from a Eldrazi Temple to cast All Is Dust, which is pretty sweet. Expedition Map lets you find like missing Tron pieces. Can find like a temple or something like that if you're far off of Tron and you're not really on getting Tron plan. Mindstone is a mana rock that draws a card later, and that's it for Eldrazi Tron. Basically, one of the better versions of Tron that isn't traditional Tron, because it doesn't go all in on assembling Mine Tower and Power Plant. It can play a game without assembling it, but if it does get to assemble it on turn 3, then it just gets to go off and do its thing even faster, while also just being a super grindy deck and just really hard to deal with as the games go along. Just getting value from its Planeswalkers and its top end in Reality Smasher and Endbringer. But yeah, that's gonna do it for me in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck tech. If you want to see more modern deck techs, be sure to check out the playlist where I have like a ton of different decks in the modern format. Probably starting next week, I'm going to be going a deeper dive into some of the other like modern decks, and just doing a like a once over, just kind of like a starter like beginner's guide for getting in those decks, than just going over individual cards and kind of like why they're in the deck and things like that. So be on the lookout for that. I appreciate you all watching the video. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more deck tech videos, breakdowns, and things like that. Be sure to follow my Twitch channel as well, where I just stream like other video games and stuff like that, and just try to hang out and have a good time. And yeah, just make sure to sub to the channel, see more stuff, all great things, and I'll see you guys in the next video.